value of a underpriced truck, and I cop it, and then I flip it. Like, so so much of the business is like in thinking about what assets will actually just hold. I can hold my money in the asset and know that on the back end I'll either break even, or the good investments you make a profit.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You get it all the way in Canada.
Hmm. I can't believe you were so quick to choose the blue button as well, like instantly. You're like, yeah.
How can you not choose it?
Yeah, I got roasted in the live I was speaking about yesterday because I was kind of like pushing back against theists claiming that they're Christians, saying that they would push the red.
Yeah. And what's the red? What happens if you push the red?
You save yourself,
Uh huh.
but if 50%, oh, pie's coming up. If 50, what up, pie? Gang bro.
What up?
If 50% choose red, then all the blue pushers are unalived.
Oh no, we can't unalive people. We can't just do that for no reason. What if
you
it's your grandma pushing the
you
button?
you get why people choose the red though. The idea of
Yeah,
self-preservation,
but what
like,
if your kid
right.
pushes the other button?
That was my thought. It's like,
Yeah.
imagine, yeah, totally.
I don't think it's just self-preservation. I think that if you think that most people would that you don't say you think that like most people wouldn't have the view that they would have faith in humanity, well then you might think that more people would survive given they push red.
Yeah, like if you were in an environment where you were assured preemptively 9 out of 10 people were going to push red, then you'd be stupid to push blue to sort of steel man what you're kind of getting at. It's like there is a threshold at which it would be kind of dumb to push blue because you would be like basically just choosing to self eliminate, right? If you were very convinced of everyone's pessimism, and that like best case scenario we're only going to get 10-15% to push blue, you'd have to end up pushing red just to survive. Kind of
Right,
what
but it
you're
wouldn't be
right.
just self-preservation. It could be for the greater amount of people.
But if it wasn't for
Yeah.
self-preservation, if you didn't take into consider your self-preservation, then that wouldn't matter. So that's the only standard on which you would do it, because if you weren't concerned about preserving yourself, why not just push blue, even if it was just a straight decision to self-eliminate, because you're no
Well,
longer
if
concerned
you're
about
convinced, if
self-preservation.
I don't think that that's the only standard though, because you just laid it out. Like, if you're convinced that people are pessimistic enough that they're not going to press blue, well, you'd be arguing that you'd be saving more people red. So that wouldn't just be self-preservation. It'd be for the good of saving
Wait,
more people.
how? Okay, how are you saving more people by pressing red? You're just saving yourself, right? How are you saving more people by pressing red?
Because you wouldn't be convinced that people would choose blue, so you'd be convinced that more people would be choosing red, so you'd be saving more people because more people would be choosing red.
I don't know if I can digest that. I don't know if I know exactly. I'm trying to.
If
You'd
you're
only be
convinced that
you
people are
because the
pessimistic,
numbers because the number that you're adding to the data, right? Like you're a number that you're considering. Like, because you've survived, you're saving more people. Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm saying if you're convinced that more people would choose red, well then you're convinced that more people would be being preserved because they would be the one there would be more people choosing red than blue. Like say you're convinced that 70% of people are going to choose red because they're just that pessimistic enough, right? Well then you just saved 70% of the people.
And okay, and every person who chooses blue is causing harm because they're contributing to unnecessary unalivement, something
Well,
like that.
if you don't get let's say you get just like I don't know, let's say you get 49%, well then you've only saved you know, you know what I mean? Like you get 49% people like choosing blue. Well, then, and then the 51% choose red. Well, then less people preserved, right?
Then
My
if
my,
like
my
thirty
general
percent,
into
if 30% had pressed it blue, then even more had been saved. Like to your point, it's like 20% more would have been saved. The less that pushes blue, the more that are saved, basically.
yeah, I just don't think that it's as clean cut as self preservation necessarily. Even though I actually intuitively lean blue. I do, but I don't think that the argument is as clean cut as like self preservation versus, you know,
One of the
the empathy of choosing the greater,
one of the
greater good.
criticisms I got of choosing blue is that it's kind of like a intoxicated mindset of self-sacrifice, right? Because and so like if someone were completely neglecting their self-preservation, you could I don't that's kind of where I don't know why the criticism of self-preservation that does seem to be the main foundation upholding the argument, because obviously a person who doesn't care about self-preservation like would just push blue. I don't, or at least I'm trying to see why they would push red unless they're like evil or bad. But if self-preservation, like the whole criticism is that the people pushing blue don't have enough sense of like self-preservation, that they're dumb. They're just walking themselves off a cliff. Hello, wake up. You need to preserve yourself and survive. That isn't that the whole criticism?
I don't know. I wasn't like I didn't hear like what the criticism was. So
Oh, true. I'm not trying to
yeah,
even,
yeah,
no, I'm
yeah,
not trying to, I'm not really trying to reflect back on the old previous thing.
yeah.
I just mean in general. Yeah, I think like Slurm specifically was trying to get that through
Okay, yeah, yeah.
the idea that it wasn't all about self-preservation, but then he was just totally uncharitable to my like unacceptance of that, and then called me disingenuous because I wouldn't accept that, because I genuinely just can't see how we could escape like exact what I just said. Like, isn't the whole criticism that I'm not preserving myself enough? Isn't that the whole issue of why I'm kind of dumb for pushing blue if the numbers are outweighing? If I'm the only one in the room who pushes blue, but yet I'm insisting I don't care about my self preservation, that seems like a rational stance. Like,
It's tough because the initial comment that I sent to you is still kind of where my mind's at. I'm still torn because I have. Okay, so like when I hear everyone gets saved, right? There's a strong emotional pull for that. However, my my intuition, like I believe that most people are good. I don't, though, have that intuition that most people believe most people are good. I have the opposite intuition. Just
yeah,
I
that's a very, very charitable, like, good way of looking at it. That even if, and most likely everyone or most people chose red, it's not coming from a place of malice or even a place of self-preservation. It's coming from a um, like oh, this is a good word, a speculative standpoint. People are being forced to speculate on how other people are speculating, so that complexifies the decision making into not just straight self-preservation. There's some sort of voting methodology also partaking where the person's like socially analyzing their stance in the room, and that's very different than purely just self-preservation where you're fighting a tiger for your life or something like that.
yeah. I also think like the theist non-theist thing is not super clear cut either. And I mean I could give my own positions on.
No, you're right to bring that up, and I actually appreciate you
Yeah.
bringing that up. The
I
reason
mean
I got so much heat is because the theist example was brought into it by me.
I mean I mean
Yeah,
listen, like if we take like a lot of eschatology models, the model is like some of the most prevailing eschatology models like do doom most people, Like they do. Like unless you're like some sort of universalist that thinks all people are reconciled under God. Like there's a lot of eschatology models that say that like the vast majority of people are gonna burn, right? You know? So I don't think it's
Yes.
fair. I don't think it's fair to just say like, oh, Christians should choose blue. It's like,
It's definitely, that is admittedly an emotional, and I admitted this on the panel when I was saying
I
it.
wasn't putting that on you, by the way.
No.
Yeah.
I'm admitting it proudly in a way that's like, um, when I call out a Christian for not being very Christian because they've like, I don't know, whatever example you want to say, maybe they're just not generous enough or whatever, they're a selfish person, and then I levy the fact, oh, that's not very Christian. It's definitely, sorry for the background noise here. It's definitely a bit of a like colloquial knee-jerk usage there. I'm not really trying to like biblically reference a citation of Christ or something. I'm just sort of, yeah, I'm throwing a rhetorical critique at a person, similar to me being like, ah, that's not very Christian of you. That was literally what that was, and it was meant to be a jab. It was meant to be a specific jab at a person's like morality tied to their theology. That was the whole purpose of the troll, basically. So I'm not ashamed to call out either Christian, Muslims, or either atheists or whoever because of their moral shortcomings, you know. And in this moral dilemma, I saw it as a shortcoming, especially how the panel was critiquing the blue button pushers, right? It wasn't specifically that I have a problem with the red button pushers. I was even saying that if I had a daughter, I would encourage her to push the red button. And I wouldn't hold anyone really responsible to your DM that you sent me. I can't really hold anyone responsible to their choices like that. But I do think that I have the right to like critique their moral standpoint, you know, based on what they're like, how they're handling the blue. They were literally like spitting on the blue button pushers, saying it wasn't a real man would push red, and I just gave them the exact opposition, you know, back to their point. It's like, no, a real man would push blue. That's my intuition.
Yeah, it's tough because at first I thought I had the intuition I definitely had the intuition to push blue. Then I had the intuition that most people would push blue, but then I almost immediately had an overriding intuition that most people would push red, which then altered my intuition to push blue.
I am right there beside you, and I do
Yeah.
see why that's not purely a like calculus of self-preservation. There's a higher, so to Slurm's earlier point, like I will concede that to thank you for making that clear. I do see how the calculus there is a little more complex than purely self-preservation. At the root of it, though, and this is where it does get a little bit like spiritual or religious. That's why I love the thought experiment. Having faith in humanity that they will, like you said, you kind of give the benefit of the doubt to people, maybe not after this calculus, but at the base root, you do give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that is the spiritual component here lacking from someone who's focused on the self-preservation component. I mean, you can talk about the complexity of that calculus, and I do get that even Saint was making that point. Like, she's just skeptical of other motherfuckers that are too selfish to do this, so she's going to self-preserve basically.
Yeah.
And it's like but then that's why I bring up the faith component, because obviously to uphold any of our democratic institutions or the very survival of humanity, you know, faith in and benefit in the doubt in each other, it's not only a biblical notion, but I think it's like the most important thing to preserve in terms of our humanity. Like, we really going to start pressing the red button and trying to rationalize that away?
Yeah, it's tricky because, like, I would say that my intuition that most people are good, not that most people view people as being good, but that most people are good. I believe I can just easily show that with empirics. I believe the empirics back that up fully, and I will die on that hill.
I agree completely with you.
I absolutely will die on that hill, and I don't even think it's remotely controversial. I just don't think that when you walk outside in any given environment, no matter really where you're at, and I'm not talking about like, you know, political discord or like, places plagued by. I'm not talking about places that have the cards stacked against them.
Bro,
Like current
even
current
bro,
current
to your
currently.
point, even
Yeah,
there, like the depths,
even
even in the
there's an argument.
depths of
Yeah,
prison, there's humanity to
yeah,
be
there's
found.
even an argument that really it's just like a minority, like maybe that has like power that overpowered the majority and how the majority would choose to live, right? There's that argument. But like I just think that like when you're out and about, it's like if you're gonna say that like the vast majority of people are like nefarious, I I think I can easily show that that's not the case. And it's like I live in an area that a lot of people are fucking like scared of too, like it's like I live in NYC, and like most people are not out doing nefarious acts, harming people. They're just not.
In my experience,
I, I,
even the
I,
ones that are comically humane, are comically hospitable. Even the ones that are nefarious are like it's most of the
yeah,
time still comically like, yeah, I
yeah,
don't
it's like I
relatable.
know what you're saying. Like even if they're doing something that is objectionable, it's not like they're doing it to like the point of becoming a horror protagonist, or
No,
antagonist.
no.
Sorry,
Oh my
antagonist.
God, no. The comedy is maintained. They're comedy relief, if anything. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
It's not like they're like out.
Struggling through the process.
Right, exactly. It's not like they're out like being the most antagonistic that they can, like, just like giving in to like complete sociopathic sadism or something. Like that's just not the case. Like, and there's like intense books written on this, right? That show this arc of like people behaving this way in most cases. Like, however, through conversations I've had, I remember there's this. I remember it was an ongoing conversation I had in college. Um, when I was, we'd go to this one bar like once a week, all hang out, whatever. And I remember we had an ongoing sort of faith in humanity conversation, and most of the people that I spoke to said that most people were like mostly bad. That was just most people that I spoke to that I remember. And I understand this is just like terrible. This is hardly data. This is just anecdotal, right? Like, but that has been like the case in respect to the conversations I've had. And I had to like walk them through, my reasoning and like point them like, it's like, okay, so like when you, when you walk out of this bar tonight, you mean to tell me that like the majority of people are going to be doing like heinous things to you and to others? Like, no, they're not. Like, and I had to like walk them through it. And usually, once I like really broke it down for people, they would concede.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they'd be like, "Oh, I guess you're right." It's like, yeah, you just, you have a primacy. I would argue that you have a sort of like primacy impact for the nefarious behavior because it is so out of place, right?
The
Like
privacy impact. Say that again.
like you have this like the impact of the anomalous nefarious behavior is you feel the prick of that strongly, and it stands out because it is not the norm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
you don't
Mm-hmm.
you watch the news at night, and they focus on the terrible things. Like that's going to be what you remember, right? It's like it's just the way your brain's gonna focus on that one thorn sticking out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is where, yeah, that's a very interesting, not only like point about the society, but self-examination. What kind of thorns bother you, and what some people are bothered by homelessness more than others. Like I can not really feel the prick of that as much as other people. Uh, so there's an interesting like self-reflection thing going on there of like kind of what pricks at me and why, and like in terms of anomalies, how that relates to our just environment, right? Because like what's anomalous is sort of maybe because I'm in this environment, it doesn't prick at me, but someone who walks here from somewhere else will be like more sensitive to it.
Hmm.
In
The thing
terms of
is,
nefariousness, though, a lot of our fears and judgments, this is why, again, the thought experiment I think is so revealing. So much of our inner paranoia and fears are revealed about humanity in general through this like democratic assumption. And the final leap of faith for me, if you don't want to call it religious, is the very democratic institution itself. Like, notice how your your political will diminishes, right? The moment you seek the majority and doubt that the majority is possible. Basically, the fact that we only need 51% to save humanity versus every one every vote that's lost on the red side is a life lost puts the risks at such a high stake that the obvious, like in terms of a democratic institution, the obvious selection becomes the blue vote, because you, right, democracy intends you're intending on like saving lives and the ideal outcome. You're not like managing risk and cutting liabilities, which are lives, like you're not cutting corners of lives like they're liabilities. It's the opposite. You're trying to absolute mitigate all the unnecessary life lost. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like for me that one's clear.
so were people giving you so people were like, it got really heated,
I
this conversation.
flipped into my troll mode where I really do not give a fuck, and I laid it out how it is and I said I'm not really here to make any friends. I really don't give a fuck. Like at one point, with extended an olive branch, and but on top of me being muted and then like hit from the pound and everything, like I just said, like I appreciate the olive branch, but I really don't give a fuck. I'm not here to make friends. I don't care if you like me. Like she was kind of going on a thing of like I like you, but and she's like a little bit tone policey. Slurms was the worst though, telling me that I'm being disingenuous and just tone policing me. And then he was the mod that ended up kicking me and enforcing the mute the entire time. And it's just like I don't hold any grudges. It's literally it's all good, and I appreciate you letting me vent here with
Like
it. But
in respect to moral hypotheticals, I just don't take them usually too seriously, because my experience is that there's just no continuity between what you say you'll do and what you'll do.
that's a great point too. Yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah. I
So I
admit
don't
I
I don't
admit
go
that when
like,
if
"Oh
I were
my
in the
god,
room,
you said X in moral hypotheticals, so therefore
totally.
you're terrible." Like that's not where my brain goes. Like
Yeah,
my
like I'd
brain,
like to think I pressed the blue button, but who the fuck knows when I'm actually in that room?
yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't
absolutely.
attribute like I just don't attribute like malice to like people's like it's like even like for a while when he hasn't ran it in a while, but do you know, and this is not at all to talk crap on Forrest. I like Forrest. It's to talk crap on how I think his prompt was kind of not really getting at at what he thought it was getting at. But for a while he ran that prompt of like, if you're a like would you unalive your baby if God told you to, right?
I've seen him run that a couple times. Yeah.
Um, I'm not remotely convinced that I'm just not remotely convinced that that says anything about someone's character. Like I just
Oh, did you cut out?
Oh no, you actually you it looked like you cut out, but
Oh, I
maybe
just
that.
paused for a second, but I can still hear you.
Yeah. Um.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. Um. Yeah, I'm just not remotely convinced that that says anything about anyone's character. Like, I don't. I don't. Oh my God! Like, you'd unalive your baby if God told you to. Like, all that tells me is that maybe they're wrapped up in a belief system. That's it. I'm not convinced that said system would prevail given they were put in that situation, right? It just it has no actual relevance to me on like what would really like and like I all it says to me is that someone is told that God is good no matter what, and they think that that is like the normative position they're supposed to have. So they think God would have reasons. So that's what they're going off of. That's it. This is nothing deeper to me than that, really. You know? Oh my God, she's a baby on the library. Like, nah. You know?
Yeah, that's why the progression of these conversations so interesting to me because, yeah, at the end of the day, the hypothetical is pretty casually approached. But then as the conversation develops, there's almost like rhetorical jabs
Yeah.
that go on that are outside of the hypothetical. And then the hypothetical is like the positions on the hypothetical are sort of empowering each of the stances, each of the um, offensive stances. You know, they're trying to like go on the offense on each other, utilizing each stance on the hypothetical, maintaining the casual, posture towards the hypothetical. Yet it basically deteriorates into pejoratives. Like the progression on the panel was, obviously Saint is highly antagonistic with her rhetoric, but usually it's fairly comical. Same with Slurms.
Yeah.
Slurms and her are a team of antagonizing comedians, which I actually really appreciate and highly love most of the time.
Yeah, it's
But
fun.
the hypothetical is less important to me than the ability to like kind of take your own medicine. Like they like making jokes and they like being sort of rhetorical, but then the moment I get rhetorical and push wit on her Christianity, I have to apologize and I've taken things too far and I'm all upset. And when and during a rhetorical joust like that, I don't mind just actually going all the way and doubling down and being like, listen, you guys think you're comedians, and I really don't give a fuck about that at the end of the day. I'm here to actually have a discussion about the shit. I'm lighthearted about the overall topic, but I'm not going to accept some sort of like comedic relief constantly like jittering at me like a mosquito. Like it's absolutely annoying at the end of the day, and it's antagonizing. Like the amount of times I was, demasculated and et cetera, before I brought up Christianity. It's just like to demand an apology from me is absolutely comical. The inability to laugh at yourself kind of it's what to your point, it's like essential to comedy, I think. So I don't know. Fuck it. I'm venting hardcore. It's
Nah, it's
interesting
all
how
good.
these relationships on here like don't matter, but they do matter. It's like
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
nag at you.
yeah.
They definitely nag at you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they don't and they do, and then you're constantly in a if you're anything like me, you're constantly weighing that out in your head. Like, does this matter? Or like, do these people actually care about me? Like, I don't know. Like, that's where my mind goes all the time.
mhm. Yeah, it's kind of makes me think about the DMs we exchanged and like kind of what you've gone through recently and how when I said like, if you don't want to talk about this, we don't have to, and we can just joust if you want. We can just if you just want to argue about shit and talk about shit, we can also just have a relationship based in that. And I think there's a degree of respect there where it's just kind of like I'm not always looking for a friend in the same way that maybe a normal social setting would. We're on TikTok, and
Right.
I do know that y'all are real people. And at the end of the day, if we were to ever meet, I would give you a big hug and I would love you. But yeah, there's some boundaries here, obviously set. We're using aliases, and we're only talking through audio. We're rarely on video. We don't know really anything intimate about our personal lives. So there's just important boundaries set to maintain the, I think, special relationship we kind of have. It's because we're at a distance that I think we can be so honest with each other and find, depth in conversation that maybe can't be found elsewhere. And yeah, so
It's
take
funny
that for
because
what it is.
like I think I approach it, and I swear, I'm. This is not meant to be like virtue signaling. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. I think it's just matter of fact. I think a lot of people, like, I've been a little more aggressive in the past, probably about half year. I've like kind of asserted myself more on the app, but for the longest time, I was just so chill, and not at all, as they want to say, like rhetorical or whatever. Um, and the reason for that is because I, so I feel like a lot of people, use the anonymity, um, as a way to like, because it's anonymous, they can be like more rhetorical, because like there's no like repercussions. But that's like precisely, I keep a guard on that because I'm actually worse in person. Like I would not be able to have like debates in person. So if I allow myself to get like rhetorical at all, like via the anonymity, I'll just go way, way, way overboard, you know?
Nice. I'm the exact same. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Like, because I'm just like I'd never be able to do this in person.
Well, what happens is
Because
that the rhetoric, I can't handle the rhetoric. I can handle a debate, but as soon as it gets rhetorical, I'm
yeah,
very, yep. Yeah.
because I saw the opposite. It's like I met a big group of people in NY, and I'm not gonna name names, but there was. I just learned really quickly that the bark on TikTok is much louder. you know, like I could just see it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Most of this bark is definitely TikTok bark. And then people actually remark the opposite about me. They're like, whoa, you're like way more like animated and stuff in person.
Yeah, that's what Robbie said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robbie was like, I feel like people would like not talk over you as much and stuff if they knew what you were like in person. Not that I was like, aggressive in person or whatever, but yeah. Just
No, you're just a presence. I already sensed that. You're just a presence. I get it. Yeah,
yeah.
if you can be sitting in those New York streets, you gotta have a presence about you, bro. I understand, dog.
Yeah. So I just like yeah, yeah, I get the idea that like most people wouldn't be able to do the debate, or most people would like it's like cower down like in the
Well, they
debate.
would project a lot of their insecurities onto your image, yes.
Yeah,
It's
or
proper
I
for
just
you to
mean like
maintain anonymity a bit.
yeah, or I just mean like if people are gonna debate in person, I think there'd be a lot of people that like wouldn't be anywhere near as rhetorical in person,
Hmm.
Whereas like I'm more so like I'm much less like that like on the app. I have to watch myself in person because I do get in debates because I vend, in parks where like lots of street preachers come in and stuff, and like I'll get in conversations with them, and they'll just be like, "Whoa, dude, calm down." So I actually have to watch myself.
Oh, I've had tons of similar experiences for sure.
Yeah,
Street preachers specifically, like one was going around telling everyone that they needed, all the guys with long hair, they need to cut their hair, and he came up to me basically like scoffed and stood there in my face like, and I was like, "What's up?" And he's like opens his Bible and tells me I need to cut my hair and that I'm like a disgrace to God because I have long hair. Fuck, dude. It was like it was literally a half an hour of just like, this is not, I'm not leaving this spot. Like, you are, yeah, if you want to call it rhetorical, that's not even the word. It's like, you don't know, you're going around and saying this. I just watched he was doing it to women too, not about the long hair, about other shit. He'd like go up and just say random shit like, oh, that skirt's too short, or just literally, man, just such an asshole. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe what. And then I was standing there, and he comes up to me and says it, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna exchange some words now, buddy. Like, if you think, and I'm in this area every day, all day. If you think you're gonna be coming around and doing this, you're gonna have to deal with me harassing you. If you think you're harassing people, you aren't even touching right. Like, you're just saying I need to cut my hair. That's hilarious. Like, that's not even brushing up on what you're gonna have to be dealing with if you think you can be in this area speaking like that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tail whip your head, buddy.
There's a guy there's a guy that was coming to the park that I've been at most of last summer, and he has it's a Muslim apologist, and he has a huge following online, like almost 3 million people, and they set up a table, and they have really, really, really good equipment. Like I said, it's a huge channel, so they have really good equipment, and they set up a table, and it's like, they call it like Minute with a Muslim, but really what it ends up being is he kind of masks it as though you're gonna talk to an or talk to a Muslim and like ask them questions, but he ends up grilling people. And I find him like really kind of insufferable, you know? Like, I don't like the way he sets things up at all, because he just makes it sound like, oh, it's like, oh, people are uneducated on Islam, so Minute with a Muslim, like, talk to a Muslim and like, you know, ask some questions about their religion. And then he turns the tables on people that sit down with him almost immediately. So he'll start asking them questions, and then when they don't answer a certain way, he kind of turns it into like shaming them or grills their worldview, you know?
Dude, he's the Darth Dawkins of Islam.
Yeah, he's not that bad, but it's just like, he definitely sets up. He's nowhere near that bad, but he definitely sets up.
Not that bad.
Yeah, he definitely sets up traps, and I was speaking to someone off on the side, and he had set up kind of a trap on someone that he was speaking to, and so I started talking to someone off to the side behind the sound booth guy about that trap that guy set up, and you know, we started kind of discussing some stuff about Islam, and then the sound booth guy, like, later, he goes, you know, who were you saying that about? And I was like, oh, the Prophet. And he immediately like started like threatening me and telling me to like watch my mouth, and got real fucking aggressive, and like he was like, you better watch your mouth, and I looked right at him, and I was like, you can watch my mouth as I continue to say this about the Prophet. That's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said to him.
That's a good one. Fuck, that's so good.
I was like, no, here's what's going to happen. You're going to watch
that just
mouth.
come to you on the spot?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, man. Talk about rhetoric.
I was like, yeah. I was like, what's going to happen is you're going to watch my mouth as I continue to say this. And he didn't like that at all, you know, but then after that, though, I dropped that, and then I walked away because I know myself, you know. But I just got so mad at the notion that he was like telling me how I could speak to people off to the side in public. Like, dude, like, what? You're not going to tell me how I can have conversations? Like, and I had been nothing but nice to them, those guys, up to that point. Won't start none, won't be none. You know what I mean? Like, I was just asking them questions about philosophy, and like I had seen them several weeks in a row, and I just didn't like the candor that one day, like the types of thing in DMs. I'll tell you, I don't. It's kind of gross stuff, so I didn't want to say it on live. But like, I just didn't like how they were setting people up, and so that's why I commented with one dude off to the side. And then later, like they started trying to like, as I was like, so the sound booth guy told the guy that was doing the interviewing, after he was interviewing the one person, sound booth guy told the interviewer like what I said, and they have their audio projected out right on speakers, so you can't hear the person they're interviewing at all really, but you can hear the interviewer, and the audio is really loud projected out. So he started like yelling at me from across the way as I was like breaking down and like it's like threatening to fight me and crap. I was like, oh my gosh. He's like, you're talking real tough. Come over here. Come over here. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, dude, it's interesting thinking about historically how public debate would have been way more frequent. Like the TikTok thing's a detachment from the true rhetoric. Rhetoric doesn't get enough respect on an app like this because in the real streets, it is honestly so much of it depends is a better way of looking at it on rhetoric. Like your rhetoric is almost everything to a degree. It's interesting that you and I sway away from the rhetoric in terms of TikTok rhetoric, but like in your street sense, it's kind of like all rhetoric. I don't know if it's rhetorical, but like kind of is.
No, yeah, you kind of have to have a certain swag.
Yeah, and like even walking away is kind of a rhetorical device. Or like
Yeah.
right. Um, I was very like surprised that so many people did choose the red button, honestly. Like, one of the ones that surprised me the most was right here, right now, RH. Because he was being actually really decent during the conversation, but he kept admitting that, like, his intuition says he should just say blue, but he was, like, insisting that red was the, like, better choice. I found that really interesting. Like, certain people, and then I found the people who were choosing blue, like Floopty, was on the blue defense, and I was surprised by that. I would have thought he would have been on the red side. So there was so much about this thought experiment that
Oh, so
divided
he
people.
did choose blue.
Yeah, well, at least he was defending it. I don't know where he's at now, but he was defending it. Um, so I just found all that, like, yeah, like how it divided everyone was like a new realm in this debate space because it's pretty clicky and everyone sort of has their echo chambers. This one like broke up a lot of typical like agreements. I think I don't know who this Wesley guy is. Or do I? Wesley, what's up? Do I know you?
Who's Wesley? Oh, there we go. Oh, I think he's a Christian.
I think we talked
I'm not a
before.
Christian, but thank you.
We've
Oh,
talked before. I recognize your
Maybe
voice.
to your standards, I might be, but
oh, I think then I must be mistaken you because I did see you recently. I apologize.
I'm pushing that red button.
So, which
That's
button
fair.
do I push to like unalive more people?
Uh, I guess there isn't really one. Well, red would be your best choice. If you wanted to
Really?
do that. Or would it be blue? No, it'd be red. I don't know. I guess.
It depends. Well, it depends on certain assumptions, and also if are you including yourself in the more people?
Alright, can you give me the rundown of exactly how this thing works, real quick again?
Yeah.
I think when
So,
they asked me, I just said blue because blue's my favorite color, and I think that's good enough for me.
bro, that is a concerning thing too. A lot of people have said that they just go with their favorite color. That's actually to Pai's point about like the complexity of the vote itself, not necessarily the like self-preservation component. But yeah, So everyone's woken up with the same task. No, you can't talk to anyone or campaign in any direction. So everyone's put in isolation to make this task of choosing a button before they like wake up in the morning. And it's blue or red. If you choose blue, and along with 50% of everyone else, everyone's saved and nothing happens. But the downside is if you choose blue, you have the potential to be eliminated, because if you choose red and more than 50% choose red, all the blue button pushes are eliminated. Everyone who chooses red, though, is self-preserved. So you save yourself if you choose red. So if you press
I
red...
think I would go blue.
Oh, interesting.
What's motivating you for blue? Like the potential of dying, potential of saving life.
Well, I think both of those really entice me. I'm not terribly keen on preserving myself as number one, but I do value other people.
But
Is that
if they
fair?
if they want to unalive,
Yeah, that's a
like
death
shouldn't we let
problem.
people unalive? That's what they want.
Yeah, but that's a problem that they could figure out on their own. Like, am I wrong in this? Am I misunderstanding it?
I don't think there is a wrong answer.
And plus, the blue button's prettier.
One of the most convincing things for me is the democratic aspect. It's one of the reasons I'm going with blue, because we're talking about voting, right? What is pressing blue and red? It's a vote, right? It's a vote on the majority. It depends on the majority or the minority, right? And how strong our vote is. You could also look at the blue and red as a choice in saving your own life or not, right? That's one way of looking at it. But the way I look at it is the democratic aspect. The fact that we have power in our vote, and it's more powerful if you choose blue. If you choose red, the power of your vote is very, very minimal, right? Because all it does really is self-assured. You need 100% of the votes, right, in order to make sure that no one is unalived. So the chances of that are very
I
minimal.
mean, I don't know. I don't think this translates very well when you put it that way. For me, at least, it doesn't. Because the reality is, me living where I live, like in California, I genuinely regret not voting for Trump. And the reason I say this is because I could have voted for Trump and California would have won the Democratic vote, and we would have still fucking lost the presidency. Like, the system itself is like so problematic to me, and I think me actually doing that and showing that would probably maybe put a dent in some people's like ideology of like how this whole fucking thing works. Like, I think that's where the problem is for me. Like, it ultimately it doesn't fucking matter what I would have voted, but like the fact that I can go against my own idea to prove a point and we would still lose because the system is fucking flawed. Does that make sense?
Yes, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
So I was going to say, could I try to convince you that red is correct? Because red is correct.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I actually do think it's good to think of it as a vote. I mean, it really is that, right? You could imagine it as ballots instead of a button. It's the same. It's the same thing. And yeah, of the feasible outcomes, like where everyone lives, obviously, the one where everyone presses red is just not going to happen, right? It's just impossible that like fewer than 20% of people are going to press blue. So like, of the feasible outcomes where everyone lives, the blue winning outcome is the better one. And accordingly, voting blue does contribute to that, right? It makes it more likely that blue's going to win, and voting red makes it less likely that blue's going to win. So that's a consideration in favor of blue. However, that's not the whole story, because there's two other things we have to consider. One is, how significant is that contribution? Like, how much more likely are we making it that blue wins by voting blue? And second, what are the risks associated with voting blue, right? And the risk is, well, that we die and I guess that also has other impacts, right? Because there'd be other people that would have to mourn our, unalive, sorry. And there'd be other people that have to mourn our unalivement, right? And I think with reasonable assumptions, let's suppose it's about a 50% chance that blue wins. And so like a 50% chance that we're unalived if blue loses and we vote blue. The former benefit, right, this very tiny increase to the likelihood that blue wins by voting blue is not enough to outweigh the significant cost to myself and others that would be concerned for me, right? It's really about 0% increase, right? Like, I don't know, I estimated about 10 to the minus 10 or something in that range increase the likelihood that blue wins by voting blue. But around a 50% chance of being unalived and impacting those who care about us if we vote blue and blue lose, if we vote blue. And that's just not a good trade, right? Now, there's a couple other complexities to the story, but that's the main sort of headline. It's just not worth it. Though it's some good to voting blue, on the whole, it's very bad, and you should vote red.
Yeah, this is really an interesting input. I come at it from the same sort of risk analysis by using votes, except the diminishment of the vote isn't clear for me from the blue standpoint, because the asymmetry in your voting power seems to be towards the blue, in the favor of the blue, because we only need 51% to save everyone. Whereas if we take the Reds' position, every single vote that doesn't go towards red is a life lost. And so in terms of risk assessment, right, it's obvious that in terms of like how probable the voting outcome is going to be, all we need, and you put it at 50-50, so literally all we would need is a hope for that extra 1% or a little bit more than 50% for all of humanity to be saved. Otherwise, we're dealing with the risk and liability of every single missed vote being a lost life. Imagine that vote, the consequences of that vote, right? You're inherently not that. Well, go ahead.
They choose that.
All that was taken into account.
They choose that.
I was just assuming that the only sort of the best outcome. I was just ignoring the outcome where everyone presses red. That's just not worth considering.
Wait, how do they choose that?
Is someone playing chess? No, but I'm just assuming that outcome where blue wins is like the best
point,
of them.
My point about the 100% wasn't to strawman you. I understand that you already recognize 100% isn't possible, but that's the point about the asymmetry in our voting power. Like to your point about our voting for blue being very, very small, we'd be able to shift it like whatever percent based on population, very, very small. It doesn't really mean much. Well, that same percentage shift on the red side is a life loss, right? But in the blue side, that percentage shift is a win, determining all lives being saved. So your vote is incredibly valuable on the blue side, whereas on the red side, no matter how many people you gather together or could campaign or how willing you are to vote, there's always going to be lives lost with every vote.
I'm sorry, I'm not actually following. Do you disagree that my voting blue contributes a very tiny amount to the likelihood that blue wins?
The likelihood, no, I agree with you. It's not going to increase the like Bayesian probability, but in terms of the asymmetry of the consequences of the vote, the consequences of red, right? You want to put it up to the consequences being riskier because it's your life on the line. It's a self-preservation model. But in terms of
it's not
like
just self, because there's other people that be impacted by that, but yeah.
Well, not directly by your vote. Neither.
No, yes, directly by my vote.
Well, the way I see it is neither button. You can't really directly impact anyone else's life by your choice. That's how I see it.
Well, depends on what you mean by directly impact, right? Because if I vote blue, I think there's about a 50% chance that I'll be unalived, and that sort of directly impacts other people too. It might not kill them, and it might not unalive them, but it's going to impact people around me, or care about me, or depend on me, family, friends, and so on. That's another significant cost.
But it weighs the same to the other way. That same, even if it's infinitesimal, like let's say it's whatever percentage, that same percentage, whatever the weight is in terms of statistics and probability, the weight on the red side is putting that weight, even though it's very small, towards the scale of majority that takes lives. So
Right,
you're
that's what I'm saying.
discounting. You're excusing the weight. You're saying just because it's so small, it's basically insignificant. And I'm saying, well, not when it's towards lives lost. Even if it's
I'm not
very
saying-
small in terms of statistics, that's a very heavy vote.
No, I'm not saying I should ignore it. To the contrary, I'm granting that it is some reason to vote blue, right? That the fact that my voting blue makes it more likely that blue wins and more people survive is good. That's a good that's a reason to vote blue. What I'm saying is that the contribution is so small, I should think it almost certainly won't make a difference. Whereas the risk I'm
That's
taking
the
to
part-
myself and
that's
others
the-
is significant.
Wait, hold on.
And if
Essentially
you're
what we're
disagreeing
doing-
that the contribution is so small, then you're just agreeing with the math, right? It's like we can do some math, but I can show you.
I
that that's the
agree
case.
with the statistical math in terms of like a normal distribution and the weight one vote will have on a Gaussian distribution. I understand that.
Yeah, I'd be with you guys.
But
Wait,
but,
essentially,
ahead.
aren't we all we're doing is
mean, it'd be
vetoing
better
the
than
right
doing
to commit unalivement?
sorry, Wesley, do you mind saying that again?
We're just vetoing the right to unalive yourself.
I don't see how that is.
Right, because if you push the button, you will unalive unless 50% of people vote. Right, so anyone who votes who doesn't want to unalive themselves is voting, in essence, to veto that opportunity.
Well, no, because there are lots of ways. There's lots of ways, and I hope you hear this as a genuine response. There are lots of ways to unalive yourself. Someone could still choose to do that right afterwards. No one's necessarily stopping or preventing that. It's the fact that this situation is very specific, right? For instance, and I'm really steel manning your point here. Imagine a scenario where some rooms where people wake up and have the button dilemma, rather than choosing a button, they just unalive themselves. That is, I would say that's actually a potential, of quite a bit of the population, right?
Well, no, there's only two motivations to push that button. A, I want to unalive myself, or B, I want to prevent other people from unaliving themselves. There's only two motivations to vote that way. As there's only one motivation for the red button, I don't want to unalive.
But you understand what I'm saying, right? That if someone was pushed to that point,
Well, now we're stepping out of the analogy.
Look. Hang on.
That's the only
Yes.
issue I have with that.
It's true that people who want to unalive themselves by pressing blue, or you're making it more difficult for them to achieve that by pressing blue. It makes it less likely that they'll succeed. Okay, that's true, but that should be a very minor consideration here.
I still also don't see how that is the case, right? It's like saying if I put railings up on a bridge, that's preventing that. It's like, well, it might be a bit, but people could still just climb over the railing. And if they're really intent on doing it, obviously there's not really any way to prevent that. So your claim is kind of moot, right? Because your claim is saying that kind of dark thing is even preventable at all. And it seems as though, even in a restricted suit in a padded room, sometimes that isn't preventable. So it's not really preventable. You can't really take someone's autonomy away like that. I don't know. I don't see how anyone's vote's doing that.
I mean, I'm just working within the analogy. Why are you
I am
pushing the
too.
button? Do you want to unalive yourself, or do you want to prevent other people from
If you're
unaliving
assuming
themselves?
people have the autonomy to choose, right, to choose one or the other, then you're also instituting them the autonomy to if it's literally, maybe the consequences of the hypothetical are that if you don't choose, you are unalived, but we didn't stipulate that, so I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that if you're literally forced to do those things and then you just, the moral dilemma is too overwhelming and you choose to end your life, I don't see why that's a restriction. People can do that. Why would they be, unless there's someone in the room restricting them, or obviously it's part of the hypothetical that they could figure out a way to potentially do that, right?
At the very least, we're preventing them to unalive themselves in this instant.
Why? Why?
Look, that's true, but again, I don't know, why is this worth talking about? Yes, that's a minor consideration. I think an irrelevant one.
So let me give a hypothetical, okay? If let's say, the four of us or the five of us are we're friends, yeah, we hang out, we know each other, we play in a band or whatever, we do shit together. We do uh, homie stuff. Um, so like one day we're just chilling, like at a whatever, and it's just the five of us, and I'm like, hey, you guys, listen. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I didn't really know how to bring this up to you, but I kind of want to off myself, and I didn't want to tell you guys because I don't want you to like try to like do some like intervention shit, and I don't want you to like try to like fix me or like try to stop me from doing this thing, That's why I didn't bring it up before, but I'm bringing it up now. But I'm telling you, like, so you guys know that this is something that I want to do and I'm serious about it, and I don't want you to try to stop me. Like, at that point, do you do the thing where you're going to try and stop me? Or are you going to do the thing where you're going to respect me and, like, not stop me?
I mean, is stopping you a danger to myself? Like, are you going to fight me over it?
So I'm going to ask you a question and then I'll answer it. And the answer could be either way. Is it relevant?
Yeah, if it is unsafe for me to provide care, then I cannot provide care.
Okay. So let's say, no, I'm not going to fight you on it.
Well, then, yeah, I'm going to fight you on it. If you're not going to fight me, I'm going to fight you.
Damn, you don't respect my autonomy. That's wild. Some friend you are. No, I'm just playing.
Well, the probability of you having a change of mind is high. So, like, in this instant, you'll thank me later. Like, that's my logic. You'll thank me
Well,
later.
I mean, I did preface by like, hey, like I've been thinking about this for a long time, and the reason why I didn't come to you guys before was because I didn't want you to try to change my mind or anything. But I'm telling you now so that you're not sideswiped. So like you're not like what the hell happened.
Yeah, but, like, there's still a probability, a likelihood of a future event in which you don't feel such a way.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. So like at that point, I mean, you're still like not really valuing my own autonomy or like my personal personhood or whatever.
I'm questioning your autonomy because obviously you're not making smart decisions if you want to unalive yourself.
Wait a minute, but that's your own perspective. It's not like that's not looking at it from like someone else's perspective. That's simply you like enforcing your own idea and reaffirming it. And I think that's where like I have the problem with this idea of like the red button where I'm going to force my will onto other people about it. Like I think that's problematic. Am I like if I'm missing something, like please let me know.
Well, that's another reason why I don't push the blue button, is that, like, I cannot provide care if it's at risk to myself. So I don't even have the privilege of vetoing your potential suicide.
That's the best argument I have heard so far in defense of the red. I don't quite know what to do with that. For instance, I maybe
That's part of what I'm saying too, right?
I might concede that if I had a daughter, I might tell her to push red. So there's
You can't talk to other people.
Yeah, but you'd want them.
No, I know.
You'd hope that they push red.
People
Right,
try to
I
And
change the
actually,
analogy,
if
bro.
they could think about it correctly, they would hope that you'd press red too, right?
Yep, they might. Yep.
But the whole point
I
about
concede that.
yeah, but the whole point of the providing care thing that sort of falls under the consideration that I gave, right? Because like the risk to you yourself, right, of getting unalived.
You did say that. You did.
It's
you
not just a risk to
included-
you. It's
Yes, you
it's a risk to
included-
others that care about you or depend on
Yes.
you or otherwise are worse off because of
Yep.
your unalivement. Right?
Well said. Yeah, I recognize that. We're all in different circumstances, right? So again, I'm not a dad. I don't have kids. So I'm in a different circumstance. If someone puts that dilemma in front of me, it's a way harder dilemma. I would have to agree. I kind of painted the picture the other day on the panel as like the Titanic ship, right? If you had a bunch of life rafts that only so many people could get into, well, the women and children go first, and hopefully the
No.
men. Pardon me. Well, like to a degree, if
No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
well, at least if we don't want to parse it out that way, at least we need to be like the people who are just scurrying onto the boats and not filling them, and then going off on them with only a couple people in them, are going to be the immoral ones versus the ones who seem to like amicably fill the boats. And I would say the heroes that sacrifice themselves, there's a hero narrative in there. I don't know how else, like if you were at the Titanic, I think you'd nobly look back at the people who willingly stood as women and children got on life rafts and like look up to them, but maybe I'm wrong. And so that from that perspective, like if I was a dad, right, I think I'd be a lot more like hesitant to just let my little girl go on the raft by herself. I'd want to go, if I was a single dad especially, but then again, right, if her mom was there, then I think be quick to know that the mom's gonna go and it's better than not, and I would try to self-preserve. But you can see how like everyone's in a bit of a different circumstance basically. So like in my circumstance, it's clear what I would do.
The circumstances are relevant, and of course there are cases where it's good or reasonable or heroic to like risk yourself or even sacrifice yourself for others. That's of course true. What I'm saying about this case is that that's one consideration for pressing blue, but the risk to reward is so imbalanced in favor of voting red that you should vote red.
Okay, so let me ask this then. In this scenario, like by me pressing the blue button, I put myself at risk, but this lowers the probability of someone else being at risk.
Basically,
It lowers the probability that all the people who press blue are unalived.
the problem is, and Friction and I already kind of like, we're not really disagreeing on this point, is that the probability is very insignificant. It's also equitable, I would say. Like I don't really, when you are trying to make the argument here, Friction, that somehow it's like weighed differently, like you're not saying in terms of probability, right? You've already conceded that it's equal probability. Your vote counts in terms of statistics, like the same amount regardless of which button you push. It's a very small, insignificant amount.
Right. To the lives of other people.
No. To the statistics of your vote. In terms of the lives, in terms of the impact on lives, there's an obvious asymmetry.
Right.
But in terms of a vote,
in terms of the overall result, right? In terms of the overall fraction that win, yeah, it's an insignificant amount. Of course, there is a small chance, right, that your vote makes a big difference, right? Maybe the vote comes down to just the last few votes, and like you turn the tide or something like that. And actually, it's only from those cases that like the expected benefit of voting blue is derived, right? All the other cases, it's like the same result regardless of what you press. But anyway.
Yeah. Statistically, when you're looking at these things through statistics, you're very spot on. I agree, 100%. Let's say, like for instance, I might take a very low probability, right, high risk, sort of action in order to, right, save a life or something. My survival is very low. You've already kind of conceded this. I'm just sort of going over the statistics of things, like this statistics of something being insignificant, right? Like the likelihood of it panning out. That's not enough of a metric for how we act as humans. We can't use Bayesian statistics to rationalize our actions, especially when they're moral, because the way the human brain kind of processes things, it seems like even when things are like unlikely or very low success rate, when they're moral dilemmas, we are still put into the circumstance of like leaning towards choosing. That's what a hero kind of does, right? He does the like miraculous low probability action that somehow pans out, even though 99% of people would jump off a building with a purse in their hand or something, they would just like crumble and hit the pavement. So it's this expression of like what the hero action is, and it kind of, to act heroically is to act towards the statistically anomalous, right, and away from the minority or like the statistically significant things. And that's what I think is so politically significant about our will politically. Like if we acted all the time towards what was a statistically probable outcome, so much of our progress in politics would be withheld. Like at the start of ending slavery, it probably statistically seemed very unlikely. But then as the movement grew, right, we could see how more and more opinions were changed, and that's the complexity of sort of human But I know that doesn't really relate too much to the decision making in terms of red blue. Although it does, the thought of an experiment does make me ponder these these things.
No, so it is relevant. So earlier on, I mentioned, although I think the stuff that I discuss is like the main considerations, there are other complexities that I didn't discuss. So I'll mention three of them. One of them is this fact about, well, there's certain sorts of character traits or virtues that pressing blue would exemplify better than pressing red. Maybe this goes the other way too. Like there's certain things that are virtues and character traits that pressing red would exemplify that are better. But you might think that on the whole it's better for blue. Another point you could make is that, well, even if I don't expect my vote to really make a noticeable difference to the outcome, it's still kind of bad to contribute to something that's that, like, if it wins, it would result in many people dying. Like, you might think that if there was a large election and one of the candidates was pretty terrible, and even if you thought you're voting for them like wouldn't change the outcome, you probably still shouldn't vote for them, right? And then a third thing is you might actually want to take seriously how strongly you'd want to still live in a world where red wins, right?
That's a really important point. Yes, that is such a good point. Yes.
So suppose that 40% of the world, is unalived, and that might include a lot of family and friends and people that you care about. If you'd rather just be unalived, then I guess you don't have any reason to press red, because in the worst case scenario, you'd be unalived with them too if you press blue, which is what you prefer. So that's another consideration. I could talk a lot more about those things. There's a couple of others I don't think are good arguments.
I just want to extend on that last point a little bit, because from my standpoint, I think I'd be able to survive and be resilient through making the choice of the red button. I don't think I would be self-unaliving just because of that choice. However, I would have to, I think, at a certain point, reconcile that decision with myself. And whether that be through just sort of rationalizing away through the insignificance of my vote, perhaps that is a good coping mechanism. But I think that for the majority, that would nitpick me away. And that sort of shows the inevitable moral consequences, right? Consequences of our actions. Moral dilemmas often don't offer a clean-cut solution, but there are consequences no matter what we choose, and recognizing those is really good faith, bro. I can't believe you actually outlined those, because that's not that's necessarily in favor of my point, but you're really good faith.
Yeah, I actually wrote a kind of somewhat lengthy blog post where I cover all this and a bunch of other things, but I could link that if you want.
Dude,
but,
please, share it with me. I don't know if you want to link it in the comments, but DM, I would love to read that. That's sick, bro.
Yeah, but what I was going to say was, one way that I like to think about this last case is that suppose you knew, you're just certain that red was going to win, right? Maybe you've seen the rest of the votes and you see that it was 65% red or something like that. If you knew that, would you press blue or would you press red?
I'd have to concede. Pi and I did go over this. Imagine the population being very small. There's only 10 people in a room, and you had some insight about the types of people. And you were like, there's literally 2 of us that might vote blue. No one's going to do it. You'd have to self-preserve. So that changes the hypothetical a bit. But absolutely, right. I would concede that immediately, bro. Absolutely.
Right. But the point of that is to show that that last consideration that I raised, that I'd rather be unalive than live in a world where red wins. That's not true for you then, right? Because if you're just sort of granting that you wouldn't want to be unalive if red wins. By saying that you press red.
That's right.
Yeah. But nevertheless, it's still a consideration. And I have talked to people that would say, no, I wouldn't want to survive in that sort of world. Which, okay, fair enough, I guess. You do have to also keep in mind that, though, your unalivement is going to impact others that do survive you. But regardless, if at the end of the day that's the choice you want to make, then you would have the motivation to press blue. But I just don't think most people are like that.
Yep. Yeah, and Pi made this point earlier, which is really good, that it's not purely, and I think Slurms was trying to make this the other day on a panel that I was on too. It's it's not really purely about self-preservation necessarily, because of the fact that we're doing this analysis on how we feel the voting majority is going to go. So there's there's a whole nother analysis going on here that isn't just fighting a tiger surviving, right? We're speculating on what we think other people are going to vote, and we're voting based on that. And so I can see here why it's a complex issue, I guess.
Yeah. By the way, I linked the main, just the blog and the chat there, not the specific post. But you can find it's the most
Okay,
recent
can
one,
I?
second most
I don't
recent.
actually see it here. Let me see here. I'm trying to look for it. I don't see it. Oh, Substack. The Substack.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any way for me to do anything? Can I let me see. I'm not really good at being a host. I'm gonna follow you back too, G.
But let me
Is there a
just
way
say
for me
something
to pin that comment or something? I'm trying to.
I don't know. I'm not a you know. What I was going to say about the expectations about the outcomes, like my reasoning in favor of voting red is more or less neutral on your expectation of the outcome. It still applies even if you think that it's likely that blue will win. It's just the stakes are a bit lower, right? Like instead of maybe a 50% chance of you being unalive, maybe it's a 30%, right? But otherwise, it's still basically the same, except that also the chance that you're the increase to the likelihood that blue will win by voting blue is now diminished, right? Or
it's
less
not-
significant.
It's not a true 50% chance of unaliving.
So, well, yeah, well, that
It's-
depends on
if-
your
if-
that depends on your expectation of blue winning, right? If you think it's more likely, then it's a lower. If you think it's less likely, then it's higher. I actually think that blue would probably lose, but my motivation to press red would still be there. It's just maybe slightly weaker if I thought blue was going to win. The only scenario where I would be shifted to to wanting to vote blue is if I was really confident that the final tally was going to come down to within maybe a few hundred or a few thousand votes. There, the power of my vote is actually quite strong, right? And I would
We
be
already
motivated to
agreed
vote
kind of
blue.
about the normal distribution thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know. The way that Robbie outlined it is that regardless of how if it's closer to 50%, if the mean is closer to 50%, then your vote is I keep getting these restrictions. I don't understand why, but oh man.
Well, so I worked through that in the some of the math in the paper. I sort of glossed over some of the complexities, but yeah, if it's not enough,
Yeah.
mean is close to 50%. It depends on how likely, because I could have a think of the average sort of bias in the vote. If the average bias is 0.5, then I would expect the most likely outcome is that it's 50-50 if the average bias is. And so, but if suppose I had, for sake of simplicity, like a uniform prior over that average bias between 0.25 and 0.75, right? Now, there's still the mean expectation of the outcome is 0.5, right? But there's still a significant chance that it's higher or lower than that. And so my expectation that the likelihood that the final vote will come down to a few thousand votes is still going to be incredibly small under that assumption. So really, I have to be more than I think that the mean will be 50%. I have to either be extremely confident that the mean is 50%, or within a tiny window around 50%.
I mean, in order to run like a statistical analysis, you need to have data points, and we don't even, and that steps outside the parameters of the analogy, right? Because we can't even we don't even know what other people are going to vote on.
Yo,
I mean, it is relevant.
RH, give me. I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation, but RH, give me your download on how you see yesterday's panel. What happened? What do you think happened?
What do you mean? What do you mean? I
Well,
don't
give
get
me
it.
your genuine reflection on how you think sort of I handled myself, or how you think the panel was, or just your general,
Oh,
how you feel about it.
Yeah, I think that you had some intuitions about blue, and then I think you I share those intuitions. I just think I'm wrong about what the right choice is. I mean, I've since switched to red, but
Nah, give me the juicy stuff though. How do you really feel about like me as a person, or like how that interaction went?
yeah, I think you were holier than thouing pretty hard. I don't know. But
Do you
I mean,
think?
but,
Go ahead.
go ahead. But I think,
I mean,
but I mean, anybody would if they thought they had, the moral high ground, I guess.
do you think that red has a moral high ground?
Who?
Red, the people who choose the red button.
Oh, I don't know. I think that's up for question. I don't see it necessarily as, I think it's like psychologically loaded that blue is the morally correct option because it's like there are things like it's virtuous or selflessness. We tend to think of those things as morally good, and blue seems to have more of those implications loaded into the idea of pressing the blue button. But
I hear that. But do you think they're like morally neutral, or do you think that red has a moral advantage, or what do you? I hear your critiques of the blue in general, but I'm just curious about whether you think there's a moral advantage to either of the if red or they're neutral.
yeah, I mean, just not like just upon the little reflection that I've done, it seems like maybe blue has a little bit of a moral high ground, and red has a bit of, more of a rational high ground.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
So
no, I think
when you
red's
say I'm holier than thou and I'm more on moral high ground, you're kind of conceding some of that ground to me, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
So
Red
wait,
has-
are you being genuine about that,
Yes.
bro? I fucking love you. That means a
Oh,
lot
I love
to
you
me.
too.
That actually
Yeah.
means so much to me. Damn, holy shit! I was not expecting that. I'm glad
Yeah.
that we
I'd say the
parsed
same
this
thing.
out. And fuck, much love. If you actually mean
I'm
that,
not-
much love.
Much love, man. Yo, I know that talking to AI isn't that cool, but I did talk to Claude earlier, and it was a staunch blue voter, right? But then I uploaded Friction's paper, and it said that decreased its credence around 0.51 to 0.55, and then I said, well, if your credence is that low, then doesn't the paper cover it? Because isn't it saying that if it's close to 50-50, then the risk is just not worth it or something? And it was like, oh yeah. And then I tried to get it switched to red, and I tried to get it to switch back, and it wouldn't.
Wait, it was blue in part because it thought that blue would win with 55%.
Yeah, or its credence that blue was the correct vote was
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because interesting.
Do you think?
And after I was like, well, upon initial investigation of the problem, you chose blue. Why not go with your gut instinct and think of all the the hot-headed, the impaired, the children, the bleeding hearts that are going to press blue anyway? Aren't you damning them their lives if you don't press blue with them? And it was like, nice try, bro. I'm not changing from red.
Yeah.
Do you think? And I know this is a small population sample, and I don't want to population size, sample size, and I don't want to generalize too much. But do you think especially yesterday on the panel, and we don't have to be specific, but do you think there is a pattern in the choices of who, I don't know, people in their actions and what buttons they press, and their sort of their demeanor? Maybe we'll just say demeanor.
Yeah. But another thing is, I don't think the answers people espouse are representative of their choices where they teleported to the room. I know.
That's the point I made earlier.
Yeah. To be honest, I think blue would get about 35 to 40%.
Yeah, I it's easy to say people workplaces have bystander intervention training all the time. Just people aren't very motivated to physically do uncomfortable things in pursuit of the moral good.
Yeah, there's a massive leap of faith component for sure that not everyone has, and I can't help but chalk it up to something like that. Like a faith in humanity, I think, is a good way of framing it, because statistically and looking at any other way, it's a pretty pessimistic reality, I would say.
Yeah, but even the framing, like Detroiter, something I've been doing to people who vote blue is I've been asking them two more scenarios. Like imagine everybody on the planet is lined up shoulder to shoulder in front of train tracks, right? And you have like philosophical horse blinders on. You can't see the person to your left or right. And you can choose to lay down on the tracks. And if more than 50% of people lay down, then the train won't kill anybody. But if less than 50% of people lay down, then it kills everybody who lay down. Do you lay down? And even though that's the same scenario, people tend to say no, they won't lay down.
Yeah, but it's not the same scenario because the framing makes a huge difference
I agree.
to how people react to it. But then how you expect people to react to it may make a difference to what you expect the outcome to be, which might influence how you vote, right? So like in some of those examples, I think a lot of people who vote blue in the standard case will think, well, here it's just almost certain that blue's going to lose. A lot of people aren't going to, put themselves on the track. And so although blue is good in the regular case where I think there's a decent chance that blue will win, it's not a good vote here, and I should just abandon ship, so to speak.
Like instead of pressing the button, if you had to like stand in front of a weapon or something, like
or stand under the hydraulic press crusher thing, or
exactly.
Whatever, but that the framing does make a difference even to your choice because it might make a difference to your choice, if you're.
And then the other framing is like you go into the room. If you press red, nothing happens to you. But if you press blue, you enter the ultimate death gamble where you know that one. Yeah, but someone made an image of that that's like the same reverse, like it's the ultimate unalive gamble or something like that, where if more than 50% of people press this, then it unalives all the people who press the other one.
These counter examples do make me ponder, though, the thresholds. Like, they are good press backs. It does make me realize there's a threshold and things aren't cut and dry. Like, to make it really analogous to the exact hypothetical, the example of me being a father. Like, I think I would tell my daughter to vote red, and I can't really reconcile that in my heart, but that's just how I feel about things. So just to explain really quickly, to Bear Cub, because I love him. So I know that we've said this 1,000 times, but I really think Bear Cub deserves to understand it really quickly. Red and blue button, you're woken up in the morning with a decision. You have to choose to press one of them, and everyone is faced with the same decision. You can't communicate with anyone or campaign towards which button to press. Everyone's just isolated and has to make the choice. If you choose the blue button, and over 50% of people choose the blue button, then everyone is saved and nothing happens. But you're also at risk because the moment you choose the blue button, if you get less than 50%, all the people who choose red are saved and all the people who choose blue are unalived. So you're in a moral dilemma of whether to basically press red and ensure your safety, or go with blue and try to muster up the 51% in order to ensure everyone's safety, which is kind of like the hero shot approach, if you want to put it that way, Bear.
To ensure any individual survives, and there's only two options to ensure that everyone survives. You're right. Obviously, the one option is anybody that you want to live, you want to press red. And then if you want everybody to live, either more than 50% press blue, which is more likely than everyone pressing red, which is less likely. Right. But I mean,
it's possible. It's possible, but it's very unlikely. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you should have basically credence zero that that's going to happen with 8 billion people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting because our intuition and our speculation on how exactly skeptical we are, right, of the humanity in people puts the threshold further and further. Like we have already said, it shows, right, how we think about our faith in humanity. If you really think 80-90% of people aren't going to press are going to press red, then you are rational to press red, right? It makes total sense. But that's why the whole reasoning component of this thought experiment is so interesting. It's because it reveals everyone's hand in terms of their faith in humanity and where that threshold is. If you have blind faith in humanity, you're pressing blue, but there's some threshold, right? And 51% seems to be an interesting one in terms of like democratic power and political will.
Yeah, but note that my motivation for red is relatively insensitive to what I expect the result to be. The only case where it shifts to favoring blue is where I expect the result to be extremely close to 50%. But no, the motivation for red is still there if I expect it. Suppose I'm like 60% confident that blue would win. I still should press red.
I mean, I don't think this is an indictment on anyone's character if they choose either red or blue, right? And like, also, it's equally rational to choose blue as it is to choose red. It just depends on your commitment or what kind of like statistical model you have running in your head.
I don't take any scenarios like this as indictments on characters. It's not the way the limbic system works.
I totally agree.
That's just not the way the limbic system works, bro. You know?
Well,
But-
I especially don't take this as a big indictment because I mean, a lot of people are not great at reasoning about these cases. Even a lot of the motivations that people provide for red are bad, right? So,
Yeah.
people just say things like, well, blue chance of unalignment, red, no chance of unalignment, so red. That's a bad argument. And they would recognize that's a bad argument in other cases. Like, if it were the chance of unalignment were to like save your family or like it's,
I don't know if this is adding to the like hypothetical, but is there any stipulated time limit?
That's been kind of part of the debate too. We don't really know, I guess. That kind of was part of my like unaliving thing earlier. I mean,
I'd be curious to know what that.
how long do people get to think about it?
The way that I've been framing it is that it's kind of like a spontaneous teleportation, and there's just everybody has their own separate room, but we're all in the room at the same time, and you have 5 minutes or something to decide.
Yeah, I mean, you might expect a different outcome depending on how long people get to reflect on it or reason through it.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what that would do. I mean,
well, and it
I'm
also
not- I'm not
it
certain
forces
if that would
it forces the consequence of what happens when you don't choose or how that exactly is laid out. Like, because right, if you only have 5 minutes, and there would obviously be people who just, if it was literal buttons, or there would be people who like don't press any buttons. So what happens, or how do we control that?
Yeah,
so
but that's
that
the hypothetical is that you got.
Is it just random or something? Like, I don't,
Yeah.
we just have to make that assumption, I guess. But the
But if you
time
make it
limit
just
puts a
random, that's fine.
weird limit on that assumption, because the moment we put a time limit, it's like, okay, well, people might not make a clear decision in 5 minutes. So then I don't know how to do what to do in those scenarios. You get a bonus round.
yeah.
Imagine the results of the hypothetical, and then the results of a hypothetical where the conditions were the same except for there's a philosophically fair coin in the room. Like how many people are the
Just gonna
undecided.
flip it. Just gonna
Yeah.
flip the coin. Random. Well, a lot of people would go with that.
If
Yes.
they don't vote in the time, then they just get unalived or something like that.
Yeah.
Which that obviously changes a lot of the outcomes too. Because if the outcome is
Yeah.
that you have to make a choice, or you get unalived versus like, I don't really know. I guess I said that earlier too. I guess that is what has to happen, because otherwise you're not really being forced to make a choice, right?
Yeah, and if you give them, if you make it random, if they don't choose, then that's making it sort of biasing the mean back towards.
Well,
towards
someone
50-50.
might try to do it randomly though. You can't really control for that. Like someone could just
Yeah.
do their own decision, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, whatever they have going on to sort of do it. Throw
That's
paint
true,
on the
but-
wall. Yeah.
That's true, but if we also knew that like anyone who didn't vote within the time limit would be chosen randomly, then we're going to think there's more random votes, and that's going to bias it back towards 50-50 at least somewhat. But anyway.
Well, this is kind of where I escape the Bayesian analysis, though, because I think the statistics on the matter are fairly straightforward. So to resurface back to that is sort of, for me, I'm not making my arguments from that standpoint, because I understand how moot they are, really. I understand. If I'm not really trying to make a statistical analysis here, it's a moral dilemma. It's also a huge component of this is dealing with, and Bear said this well in the comments, it's like dealing with my consequences of my choices. Would I be able to look myself in the mirror if I chose red, versus would I be able to go to my death if I chose blue? And I think I'd be more, and maybe this is all talk to an earlier point Pi made about like we say we would act a certain way, but who knows in the real situation. But I would hope that I would be able to respectfully go to my execution versus live a life of doubt and 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 to that point, it's like, even if I did choose the red, admitting that I would live a life of regret and doubt is sort of still conceding the point, right? Even if I self-preserve, but I live consciously regretting my decision, or at least admitting that it was like an unethical decision. Maybe I don't regret it. I would at least, I think, have to concede that it was like somewhat of an immoral act, or maybe not, but that's how I would feel. I feel like.
I mean, is this just a way to like ask indirectly what is duty of care? Like, are we obligated to risk ourselves to provide care?
Definitely has implications towards that. Again, everyone's sort of different, so there is implications towards that, Wesley. Yeah, like the Titanic example kind of paints that, right? I don't think a duty in a desperate, scarce situation where there's scarcity, there's very much, and if we neglect this, I think we're missing the mark completely. There's very much implications on those who sacrifice and are patient, especially like men versus women and children, and their sacrifice to that, like in a life raft situation, seems to like literally foundationalize what acting heroically and being a moral person is. So I don't know where to go from there if we neglect that admission. If we literally start ridiculing the men who get, if there even is just one man on the Titanic who gave his life to, right, to not go on the life raft for a woman and a child, like, I don't know where our foundation of morals and ethics even are then, if we can literally ridicule that man, because for me, that's a hero.
I would be one of the violin guys.
Yeah, right. Playing the music into the ankles deep. Fuck yeah, me too. That was my favorite guys too. Those are one of my favorites.
About the original issue is like, I'm kind of in. There's these two minds that are split again. So I'm torn between, wanting to pick red, and while I pick red, hoping that blue wins, right? Mm-hmm. And picking blue, hoping blue wins, but being fine with me stopping existing if blue lost. So I don't know what that says about me and my psychology. But yeah.
No, I think we're all there, and I think the threshold's going to depend on the actual context, right? 8 billion people, it's really hard to answer for. A room full of 10 becomes really way easier to see what you would do. But when we're in the middle, we just kind of have to I don't know. It really is contextual at a certain point, right? Of where you think humanity is going to vote.
Well, yeah. That's another thing. The hypothetical I'm assuming presupposes that there are an odd number of people in the world, obviously. Like, that just seems obvious to me.
If there aren't, one's got to die.
But what did you think about that two minds thing, Friction?
Well, no, I sort of understand that. The thing about wanting, voting red, but like wanting blue to win, that is slightly in tension, right? But I think that ultimately that's the attitude that I would have, right? It's slightly in tension because if I want blue to win, I have some reason to contribute to that outcome, right? But of course, I'm granting that I do have some reason to pick blue because it makes it more likely that blue will win. But on the whole, I have reason to pick red. So even though I'd rather blue win, on the whole, I have reason to pick red. And there's no ultimate tension in that, but there is, there's a little bit of tension there. Yeah. I just want to make a really quick remark about the statistical relevance and then the normative or moral stuff. The point of the statistics is not to directly make like an ethical or moral assessment. It's just this. I will sort of go through the statistics to think about what do I expect to happen if I do this versus this? Like, what's the difference? How much better is it? What are the costs and benefits in terms of like expected outcomes? And then we can think about okay, but how do we rank these? Like, how do we value those outcomes? And what are the other considerations that bear on the decision? Right. And I think doing the first step is relevant to just to have on the table what the expectations are, to then sort of evaluate them. So, I mean, this is a standard thing in decision theory. You sort of think about the different possible outcomes, sort of and how likely they are conditional on your, how you act. And then you sort of rank them, or you think how much preferable is this action, this outcome to that outcome. Right. And so the statistics isn't the end of the story, right? You still have to think about how much you value those outcomes and the difference between them and so on. And the other factors that, in terms of virtues and living with your choice and other things like that, that's all relevant to the choice. I just think that the statistics is important for thinking about like what the outcomes are, and then we can do the rest of the analysis.
But the problem with that, bro, is that the statistics slam you into a bit of a reductio as well, because you admit that if the population was small enough and you're in a room with a bunch of optimistic people who you were very confident were most likely all going to vote, or the majority, well over the majority was going to vote blue, you would vote blue, right? Or would you still vote red just to maintain your? That's an interesting one. You would still, wouldn't you? You'd vote red.
Well, it depends, right? If I'm really confident that blue would win, I guess I'd be sort of indifferent. I mean, I might vote blue, but it's sort of like irrelevant because the outcome I expect to be the same. But if I'm only
okay, sorry, go ahead.
confident that blue's going to win, then I'm voting red, right?
But that's where I'm saying you kind of are just looking at the bare statistics, because I mean you're conceding a bit of ground there, but like the consequences of your actions are, I think, going to be way more highly considered once you are at the, to your point, once you've done the statistical analysis, you've made the decision, okay, we're maybe at a 70-80% that I think might vote blue here. Well, if I choose red, the social consequences of that might be pretty significant. Like these people might not really appreciate that I went against their vote, and I'm going to have to live a life now contemplating, and they're going to make me aware of that, contemplating how I'm on a moral low ground compared to them.
Well, actually, you're changing the scenario, so it actually might affect it if the vote is not private, or like the results are like known and like people know what I voted afterwards. In that scenario where I might expect some consequences for pressing red when blue wins, that's going to lean me more towards pressing blue, right? But if we're supposing that it's like
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to address that. It's kind of implied though that like even if the transparency of the vote isn't clear, right? You get the conversation and talks about what everyone voted. You're either going to have to then you're going to be put in another moral dilemma of whether to lie about it.
The way I frame the hypothetical is that the ability to talk about your vote after it's impossible to do that in the world or something.
Like maybe it's a subconscious dream that you just think didn't actually happen and everyone just sort of forgets.
Yeah, or people just have their memory erased.
It's like just nomically impossible for you to talk about it or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just imagine a memory erase of the event. But
I like that.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you've seen the Men in Black thing that has a thing that just flashes.
Yeah, you make the decision and you get your memory erased. Yeah.
But like it does change it, right? At least somewhat, you know. If we're going to potentially face consequences or have to discuss this afterward. Of course.
Or if you like get a tattoo on your forehead of a red or blue dot or something, you know.
I'm skeptical. So like I definitely think that like people in the moment would be questioning their own choice. I'm skeptical that most people would be thinking far ahead as to, oh, I'm going to be living with people that chose, X, Y. Yeah.
Okay, you're right about that, but I guess it's too far. Go ahead, Pi. Go ahead.
I think we abstract that way when we have a shit ton of time on our hands, but I'm not so sure that would be.
The problem is we also took it a little too far. I'm realizing now with the memory deletion, because that really does change a little bit about the moral implications. If I am considering maybe not the social implications of everyone finding out my vote, but at least my own conscience reflecting on that action later in life, right? If the memory thing happens, then I don't deal with those consequences. And I think, although this is now in the depths of philosophical morality, I would say that probably, I don't even know, like I would change the morality of it a bit. I don't know. You shouldn't really change your action. Shouldn't really though, right? Not being able to remember it.
No, but it should matter, like the psychological effects that your vote will have on you later. Like whether you are going to experience those effects is like, should be somewhat relevant. Maybe it's not decisive, but it's a consideration.
Yeah, I think that part I think definitely would kick in almost immediately for most people. Like, I think that would probably be pretty prominent. Well, as to whether or not they'd weigh out how other people,
of course,
like living with the people that chose a certain way. I'm not so sure. I could be wrong on that.
Of course, the only scenarios where you remember are either when blue wins, in which case, I don't know, would you really feel bad if you knew that you voted? Or blue loses, in which case you can already know what you voted, right? Assuming that you knew what happened, even if you didn't know, like remember what you voted.
No, the beauty of this, this is kind of, I don't know if this is a religious aspect of this, but for me, I feel sort of intuitively like it is. The beauty of this example does sort of relieve the red button pushers who, if the majority of the blue wins, right, and there are people who push red, unless there are social consequences, which we could totally revoke those, the beauty of this moral dilemma is the red people are kind of relieved of their responsibility, right? There's not really, and we said this earlier, there's not really a whole lot of responsibility we can hold people to in their decision. That's one of the most beautiful, like, clean parts of this that makes it really hard to parse out.
Yeah, it's still
Yeah,
true.
Go ahead.
Like, suppose we had, remember the example I gave earlier about an election where one of the candidates was terrible, like, maybe it's like like a serious criminal, like they were going on a lot,
Like Trump or something. Like,
Yeah,
not a name any real names, just like.
I'm imagining even more serious. But like, there's still, unless suppose that they lose, right? But you voted for them. Well, were you absolved because they lost? I mean, it's in the terms of the results, I guess a bit, but not completely, right? He still contributed to a bad campaign, even if they didn't win, right? So there still would be a concern there.
Or imagine, like, I know that we keep spiraling off into different variations of this, but imagine, the results get published after, or maybe each person just privately gets the results beamed in their head or something, and it turns out that 90% of people voted blue, and you were one of the 10% of people that voted red. How would you feel or something?
Right. Yeah, like, I think that would have this is where, again, I think the nuances of the discussion rather than the sort of the substance of the theoretical become interesting. Like the pattern that I see in how the conversation devolved yesterday, or who takes what side. There's some deeper things here that kind of go and reveals people's hands. It kind of reveals where people are at. That isn't really necessarily I don't care about what button you push. But then as we approach the conversation, it is interesting to see a bit of a pattern here towards where like a bit of an antagonist approach seems like a more red fuck it. Like if you're in the 10% and you just have the attitude fuck it, I don't care. It's interesting how those people are gonna inevitably fall in that 10%, right?
Yeah, but to be clear, my credence is basically zero. That it would be that high. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I woke up and I found that 90% of people pressed blue, I think my first two reactions would be, okay, it's great that everyone survived, and then I'd be shocked that the vote was that high, right? I'd be amazed if red got fewer than 40%. But would I regret my vote? No, right? The reasons that I had to vote red were good reasons, so I would have.
And even from like a consequentialist like view, like if your goal is to make sure you survive, then I mean you fulfilled that goal to the T.
There's a crazy thing I just realized here, that if the first time the vote went around, and now this is a huge, I don't know how this could spiral into many different directions too, but like let's say the majority was there, the 90% prick blue. If we had to do the vote the next day again, like, right? Or maybe it was close, maybe it was just 60-40, but now we're forced to do the vote again, all of a sudden the statistics would all go up. I think everyone would, like, from 60%, you'd see basically everyone just be like, fuck it, we're going to win again and do 90%. And that makes me really think, like, abstractly about, like, voting in general and political will. Because one simple win like that literally changes, like, the perspective of the zeitgeist. That's insane. Right? Like if everyone survived and we all woke up the next day and the stats were revealed, oh my God, 70% of us were optimistic. Like the remaining 30 or whatever the remaining, even if it's like literally 52%, like I would think that the remaining would just be swayed almost instantly in their faith in humanity, if you want to call it that, which that is like kind of blowing my mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, it is true. If blue were winning and it was like repeating, then I would definitely expect to blue to go up, because a lot of the people that were a significant number of people who voted red because they thought there was a good chance that red would win would now switch over to blue.
The opposite would happen too, probably.
It would be a positive.
Would happen. If the red won and we took another vote, there would be almost no blues the next time.
Right. Correct. But it's sort of like a positive feedback either way, right? But this also gets back to like, what do we do if we get time to prepare, right? And like, if I could, because if I thought I could run a campaign or get people together to run a campaign to get people to vote blue, then that's a good idea. Unless I think the campaign would get more blue voters, but not enough, right? Because then I'm just condemning more people, right?
Oh my
So
god. Yeah.
so if I thought the campaign could had a decent chance of succeeding, I would do it for blue. If I didn't, then I'd do a campaign for red. Right?
Bro, this moral
'Cause
dilemma is so
yeah.
fascinating. Holy shit.
Yeah.
But then there's this other notion where like, imagine, so let's just take like veganism for a real quick example. Imagine, you have like a team of, let's say, 10,000 enemies that just hate you, and they know that you're a morally virtuous person, so they just do the opposite of whatever you do. Well, knowing that if you purchase non-vegan options, 10,000 people would purchase vegan options, right? Would that make you act in a morally bad way to ensure that more people act in a morally good way? So I say that to say, if I did a blue button campaign and I thought it was fairly successful, that I thought that maybe I convinced like 10,000 people to vote blue, would that give me the comfort of securing a red vote for myself?
Dude.
Yeah, so there's a further question.
Bro.
Like, suppose I thought I could run a successful campaign to get blue to win, and I did that. Would I still then press blue, or would I press red? And I probably would press red.
Right. So it's like, okay, well, I did the work that I need to do,
Yeah.
Is
And
it
now
just
I
me,
can-
or is this hypothetical like possibly one of the most potent ones I've ever come across? Like none of the Charlie problems or anything hit me this deep. Like I've been thinking nonstop about this, man.
Yeah, no.
It's a good one. Philosophers spend their lifetimes waiting for hypotheticals like this, just so they can sit around and pontificate.
It's a privilege. It's a privilege with you guys as well. I've been on a streak of blocking people. I just blocked Leftist Blondie, who came in here a couple times. I blocked Monkey Boy. I blocked Wit Slurms. I blocked Saint. I don't block anyone normally, but I'm on a bit of a curation curve here. I don't think that these conversations happen without serious moderation. I don't have any mods. I moderate myself. And I think moderation is something to be really taken seriously. It's
Wait,
gonna be the
you blocked those people because they were red voters, or what?
No, bro, no, of course not. It's kind of on this vibe
Oh.
that I'm saying. It's about moderation. And I mean, moderation is something I take really seriously because, it's what's going to cultivate the conversation. I don't want to waste my time. That's all it is. It's about cultivating actual conversations that I find productive. And I've wasted so much time on this app that I think it's just time to sort of like trim the hedges a bit so that I can get along with it, get on with it. I'm not here for jokes and making friends necessarily. I love all you guys to a degree, but it's not here for making friends. I'm here to cultivate real conversations and the talking over each other, the mod thing, the antagonizing. I mean, yeah, I just match people where they're at, and if I'm constantly in lives like that and surrounded by people like that, then I match their energy, and it's not good.
Just blocked friction, so
Yeah.
I mean
Um,
he's just a gibberator. So
Does anyone want to give Rasul the quick download? Or no? Someone give Rasul the quick download. Come on.
Okay. So everyone in the world is suddenly facing this sort of private vote, and they have to either press a blue button or a red button. There's no preparation. Nobody knows necessarily ahead of time what everyone else is going to do. There's no communication or anything like that. You're just put into this room, and you have to press either a red button or a blue button. And here's what happens. Everyone who... if more than 50% of people who press... if more than 50% of people press the blue button, then everyone survives. If fewer than 50% of people press the blue button, then all the people who press the blue button are unalived, and the people who press the red button are survive regardless. The only difference is whether the people who press the blue button are unalived. And then which you press? You press red. Red does ensure that you survive, but it sort of contributes to the total of red votes and diminishes the fraction of blue votes. Or do you press blue, because there's a chance that you'll be unalived, but also it contributes to the chance that blue is going to win, which is, going to save everyone.
Welcome to the pit of hell. Welcome to the Pandora's box of philosophical hypotheticals. Moral dilemmas. Real soul. See you in a week, buddy.
I've got to go, mate. I love you.
I love you too, RH. I wasn't expecting this outcome, bro. You're a G. Gang. Much love. I can't wait to see the video you uploaded, by the way. I'm stoked. Feel free to do that anytime. I'm stoked. I know that you already do, but I actually love, even if I'm trolling and irritated and shit, I love, anytime you want to clip farm me, fucking do that shit. I'm honored. Honored to be clip farmed, bro. Especially with your sense of humor.
Wait, I just noticed something. Do you have someone named Leftist Blondie blocked?
Yeah. That's what you said. Yeah. I've followed her and listened to her a lot. We've engaged a couple times. I'm not interested, to be honest with you. Again, back to time wasting. It's nothing personal. It's nothing personal. It really isn't. I'm over it. It's a time waster to me.
I mean, you are a capitalist. I don't see agreeing with leftists.
What's that? No. I don't like even the term right and left, bro. Can we all just get along? I mean, I like them using. We can parse it out, but I would never like block someone based just on that at all, ever.
I prefer bolt thrower fans or non-bolt thrower fans, and I will block the non-bolt thrower.
Okay, well, in
fans.
that case, yeah. Let's be real. Yeah.
That's right.
Blue Rasul. See?
Means I'm blocking most everyone.
I knew your heart. That's why I'm not blocking Rasul. See, he's a blue presser. It's funny. I blocked so many people. I ain't blocking Rasul, but he's him and I have had our disagreements as well. It's interesting who we curate, right? Like some people would have him blocked so quickly, and then just peace, Wesley, bro. Much love. We'll talk sometime soon. Have a great day, bro. Friction, it sounds like you've put so much time and effort into thinking about this, the fact you've written an article and everything, and the fact you're coming up and discussing this with me. Like, I'm honored, bro. Like, you spent so much time up here now, and the way you've engaged and everything is like, yeah, just, I can't respect it enough, bro. Mad props. Very admirable.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on.
I know you make
I was the 100 likes on the live, and no one else liked it. That's good.
Thank you, bro.
Friction, I know you make a lot of probability arguments. Was that what you was that like your main like focus in philosophy? It was like, did you lean towards, or is that something that like came later? Like,
oh well, no, it is. It's relevant in other ways too, but yeah, I do also have a degree in statistics.
Statistics, okay, yeah.
It's cool. Those things are kind of intertwined. Hey, like statistics and philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I think statistics is my favorite kind of math. It's the thing I excelled at the most post-secondary. Like math for physics and calculus, I found hard, but statistics I seem to intuitively grasp a little
I've just
better.
like I've read a lot of Friction. I would like read a lot of your like not a lot, but some of the stuff. And I noticed you always had a bent towards statistics. So I was like, that can't be a coincidence.
Can I ask about the relationship between statistics and Bayesian theory? Because honestly, when I was at university, I was taught statistics. I went into like 300 level course statistics, but Bayesian theorem was never really formally taught to me. Is there statistics outside of Bayes theory, or are they all kind of the same thing?
No, there's stuff outside of that. I mean, like, so you can. There's all sorts of statistical modeling you can do, and other sort of tests you can do and ways you can estimate certain population statistics and so on. There's not just some sort of application of Bayes, right?
What is Bayes theorem then specifically in terms of statistical analysis? Like, what is the compartment of that? What does it mean?
Well, Bayes theorem is just a theorem of probability, right? It says that the probability of A given B is equivalent to the probability of B given A multiplied by the probability of A divided by the probability of B, and or did I say that backwards? No, I got that right. And it's true that we're not going to want to violate that in other statistical work.
Okay.
But it's just that other statistical stuff is just not. It's doing a lot of other different things that aren't just like an application of that sort of rule, for example.
But that rule, you would agree, in terms of statistic, is basically never violated, and that is just the base. So Bayes theorem is sort of like a foundation then of most statistics modeling, right?
Yes. There's a couple of complications, right? You might want to allow that certain probability zero events don't turn conditional probabilities, don't make certain conditional probabilities undefined, and there's other sort of extensions or modifications to kind of standard Bayesian.
Okay. Okay.
You can do to accommodate that, but in general, yeah, it's like, suppose you're just take a simple case of statistics. You're trying to, you have a sample from some population, and you analyze that sample to try to estimate the certain population statistics, right? So you get a mean of your sample. Okay, what should I think the mean is of the overall population? What is my sort of confidence of that? What's my 95% confidence interval, and so on. Those are sort of mathematics for doing that, and all of that. That's not going to violate Bayes' rule. I mean, it shouldn't anyway. If you violate Bayes' rule, then you probably made some other mistake.
There's you can it's not strictly like non-frequentist either, is it? Because like when I had first started learning about it, it was kind of like conveyed to me that it was like the two were pitted against each other. Like there was like Bayes and then there was like frequentism. But it's not like strict like that, is it? Like you can invoke frequentist approaches to Bayes.
Yeah, but also a lot of the stuff you do in statistics just doesn't assume one way or the other that
Okay.
the right way to think about probabilities. Now, it's true that certain way things are taught or understood is more amenable to something like a frequentist assumption, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, all that can be done in certain contexts. You might use Bayes' rule. It doesn't. It's not supposing that the only way to think about probability is some frequentist or something else like that.
Thank you for explaining that to me, bro. That parses some clarity to my view. And I need to look into a bit of the history of I'm assuming Bayesian is a person, or what's the name? Bayes? But yeah, I got to do some deep dive into the history of this person and their contributions to statistics.
Yeah, it was a bishop, Paul Bayes, I think was his name. Anyway,
Cool.
yeah.
Very cool. Hey,
Alright.
do you ever think about statistics in terms of finance?
No, not significantly. No,
No? Or like economics?
no, I'm not much into this.
One of the reasons I got interested in economics is because of how fascinating the modeling is. Not necessarily
Yeah.
even, like if the tools for modeling finance data is so like easily accessible and fascinating. I don't know if you've
Oh
ever,
yeah, no. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not super into it, but I'm aware that it's quite extensive. And,
Yeah. It's pretty cool to be able to plot different technical analysis charts.
yeah.
Pretty cool. I don't know how much they mean. It's kind of like staring into the astronomy of things, or the astrology of things, I mean. But it's fun. It's cool to see how you can like put, like a Bollinger Band on something and show the standard deviation sort of cloud around a data point and certain things like that. You can plot a lot of different indicators on top of price charts. It's cool.
Yeah.
Well, man, I'm gonna
good
do
talking.
some
I
extra
should get
sketching.
going.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
having me up, man.
I love you, Pi.
Awesome.
Peace. Have a good day, bro. Friction, you said
See
you're
ya.
getting out too?
Yeah. See you soon.
Peace, boys. Have a good day.
Peace.
Much love. Honored and blessed that you guys humored that discussion. What an amazing interaction once again with the homies. That was sick. Who else is in here? Yeah, that was hella fire. I might end it there. Hard to end on a better note. Much love.